Definitely was excited to see how our guys responded, especially in the second half. I was definitely disappointed, really, with two plays in the first half with our execution. It really boiled down to two young men not doing what they've been coached to do, and that was very disappointing. It led to 124 yards in the first half. But when you take away those two plays, I felt very good that we executed against a very good offense. In the second half, I think our energy and our willingness to fight showed up, and so we really had overall a good day, despite those two plays. That was very disappointing. It still bothers me because, like I said, you coach guys to do certain things and respond in a certain way, and when they don't do basic technique and basic fundamentals, and I always talk about, you're trying to overcompensate for somebody else, it can lead to explosive plays. But outside of that, our third down was very good, 73%. We did a good job in the red zone, holding them to a field goal. Got 4 turnovers, and in the way we got the turnovers, I'm seeing young men starting to become smarter with their football IQ, which we've always talked about. That led to some really nice interceptions and fumble recoveries, executing what we teach. So, you look at Presbyterian, we all know that this is a very good football team that comes in regardless of the record. Anytime you play a conference team, they're very familiar with you. You're very familiar with them. So it's not about the record. It's about who's going to come in and execute and play at a high level. Coach Spangler, who was the defensive coordinator, took over. Got a lot of respect for him and how he does things. So I know that this team is going to come in prepared. We'll find out who's going to be the quarterback. But we feel very good that we're putting together a good plan that will continue to allow our young men to play fast. So at this time, I'll take any questions.
Coach, you mentioned the first half with just the 2 explosive plays that you guys gave up this past Saturday. Were there any major adjustments you guys did at halftime going into the second half, or was it, just kind of speak to that, the second half performance?
Yes, we definitely talked about it, and I want to do we talked about with Coach Singletary getting a little bit more 5 down linemen in the way that we do our bear package. So we actually, brought up the linebacker to compensate a little bit against us 11 personnel when they had a tight end in the game. And we did that, and I thought that taught them out of 11 personnel. But when you watch the film, it wasn't 11 personnel that hurt us. It was 10 personnel. When they went 2 by 2 with 2 receivers, they had the run game and the bubble game, bubble screen game, RPO. And so what happened is those 2 plays that we gave up, we had a DN that didn't stay outside, and it went off the edge. And then we had a spur that didn't fit the B gap. He got there, but he just didn't make the play. And so second half, they stuck with what they were doing, and I ended up calling the same calls I called in the first half. We just responded better, and we executed. And so at the end of the day, it's all boils down to execution. And I think we was able to showcase that if we just do what we're coached to do, we can be a tough team against a very good offense.
What did Seneca Espinosa show you in playing that second half at the spur of what he can do in terms of his coverage ability with the interception and also coming up to stop the run?
Well, he just did a good job making the most of his opportunity. Unfortunately, like I said, we had some miscues in the first half by a couple of young men at their position, and wanted to shake it up, gave him an opportunity, and he made the most of it. He did great technique when it came to that man coverage, exactly how I teach it. It's good to see what you coach. And he executed at a high level, got hands on the receiver, and then was able to undercut it at the right time and made a phenomenal catch. And like I said, when you start seeing young men do those type of plays, that's innate ability. And you got to continue to groom and continue to teach. You still got to continue to develop. But as a freshman, he showed that it's not too big for him when the opportunity comes.
Final home game for, 10 guys this Saturday. Will it be an emotional day for you?
Well, I was prepared for somebody to ask me that question. That's why I brought my Kleenex. Yeah, it's going to be emotional. I think about Solomon McGinty, a young man that I met in Texas. And I think about Devontae Brown. Those are the 2 guys I got. And those are 2 young men that stuck it out. During this season, started off 3-0, feeling really good. And then, unfortunately, you lose 4 in a row, that can divide a team, and I've always talked about that. But to see how those 2 young men on our defense side of the ball, as well as seniors on the offense side of the ball, kept this team together. And in reality, when you're not really playing for much, as most teams had an opportunity to play for at the beginning of the season, for them, I got a lot of respect for all those guys. Because I played, and I think it's at the end of the day, sometimes it's tough when you're going in, you ain't playing for too much in reality. But the way that they've stuck together, these seniors, and has encouraged these young men, you got a lot of young men Liberty's going to be very proud of to say that they're alum. Because to me, I got the utmost respect for all of them. Say it again. Oh, man. I'm going to be like a parent. How can you choose?
Coach, when you look at the preparation coming into this game, and I mean, it doesn't change, but given what we just talked about with seniors and all that stuff, I mean, is it starting to feel a little bit different though, just knowing that it's coming down to the wire here?
Yes, it is. It is. Like I said, you look at Devontae Brown. He came in as a walk-on. He tried out as a walk-on, and now he become a pivotal player for our defense. And that's a lot of credit to Coach Singletary, just to know what he's been through off the field. You're just so proud of him, because a lot of young men would have gave up. A lot of young men would have quit. You look at Solomon McGinty. You're talking about a young man that got a rod in his leg. But persevered to play college football because he wanted to do it. He got his degree in May. And he's working on his graduate degree. Like I always tell people, I just want to be a seed planter. And I take great pride in seeing young men be successful. You want to be successful on the field, but you want to see 5, 10 years from now, those young men are good fathers, good husbands, and they're great ambassadors for this university.
With only 2 seniors on the defensive side who see a lot of snaps, how pleased were you to see what they were able to do at halftime with, take the adjustments and then also make plays? Because we've seen in the previous games, those adjustments, when they're made right, they do good, but then, it doesn't stay. Mm-hmm. What did you see in these guys that they were able to maintain that for 30 minutes in the second half?
I've been blessed to be around some great mentors, from Coach Barry Alvarez to Carl Torbush, Brett Belma, and the biggest thing about young men is growing pains. And when you got only 2 seniors, and some young men just need game experience, like a Seneca Espinoza. You go to the game we had previously at home, because he doesn't execute properly the technique on the quarterback against Kennesaw State, it leads to a big-time touchdown. But then you see him slowly starting to make progress, and then he has a breakout game like he did this past week. We got a lot of young men, that's the scenario. And so what has happened is, I truly believe they're just continuing to gain that confidence, and the game is starting to slow down. Athletically, we always known a lot of our young men that we brought in the last 2 years are exceptionally gifted. It's just about slowly maturing them to where they can make the proper calls, execute the calls at a high level. And, for whatever reason, second half, a lot of those young men chose to do that. And, it's my job and our staff's job to keep them motivated to really buy in to executing at a high level and not just doing their own thing.
Coach, when you evaluate Presbyterian and some of their playmakers, you already talked about the quarterback, not sure who's going to be playing, but what really stands out to you on tape when you evaluate them? Well,
I think they, in my opinion, they just do a good job with how they keep you off base. They do a little bit of everything, from option to going 4 wide. Their screen game is very potent. They got the freshman running back, who I think has a chance to be really good throughout his career in the Big South. And the thing that me, especially Coach Bookbinder, because he coaches the linebackers, they do a little bit of everything when it comes to key reads. I mean, they kind of break all the tendencies that you normally would teach in the eye progression of a linebacker and your outside backers. I mean, you tell them, hey, when this O-lineman or this tackle do this, expect this. They do the total opposite, and they're able to execute those run plays. So, we're real excited. I think the familiar thing for us is we've played against them every year. So, our young men got a little baseline of what to expect. But this is probably one of the more difficult teams to face because they do a little bit of everything. And so you always got to keep your play calls very simple, which we've done in the past. So that's going to definitely help us because we're able to resort to the last couple of years that they've done some of their offensive style of play.
Follow up to a question I just asked. What's now going to be a key to get those guys to play with the same intensity they had in the second half against Duquesne to start the game and have that same type of fire so that way you're not having to rally from 17 down?
Yeah, it always boils down to that internal motivation. Some of the young men that I've seen have success all of a sudden, they really motivated themselves. I remember Jacob Hagan in 2012 when he got that interception against Stony Brook and he got that forced fumble for a touchdown. I never had any other problems with Jacob Hagan because he was just internally motivated to watch film, to do what he needed to do. And I can tell you I had two of those young men that had successful nights Saturday. For the first time, they're texting everybody talking about they want to be in film room on Monday. So they was in there for a whole hour watching film. And sometimes the taste of success is what can motivate a young man, even though as a coach you try to let them know the importance of it. But, when you get an opportunity to know that you help your team make a play, now you really understand I need to watch film. I need to get any little extra edge I can get. And that's what I see right now from some of these young men that were able to help us Saturday.
Does Elijah Benton bring his lunch pail defensively like he does on special teams for you?
Yes. Yes, he's been a young man that I think through special teams the game got slower. I always knew that he had a chance to be very special. I remember me and Jacob Hagan spoke over the summer because Jacob Hagan came out here and worked out with the young men a little bit, and he praised Elijah Benton. And so, it's there. It's just about that maturation process. In the Morehead State game, he went out there and he had, quite a bit of mental errors, play calling wise. And that led to a couple of big plays when we put him out there. You don't get discouraged because he's young, but you don't want a young man to lose his confidence, especially in the back end. I've coached some young men that freshman, sophomore year, because they gave up big plays, it kind of really hindered the rest of their career. I think he survived because of special teams. He was able to go make play after play after play. And then I'd say about 2 weeks ago, I really noticed the difference with him in practice. He was louder with his communication. He was on point with his communication. Coach Gill noticed it too. And, we started throwing him out there. And then with the injuries that occurred, we threw him in there against Gardner-Webb, and the rest is history. And he's been a young man that's been watching film on Mondays. And so that's what I said. Sometimes the taste of success will be all the motivation a young person needs to continue being consistent in what it takes to be successful.
What's the loss of Jalen McKinney do to you this week?
Hurts. Like I said, I feel more for the kid because, when you know a little history about young men and see how hard they work and what they go through just to be successful and get a degree and do all those things, I always say football, next man up. But I'm always more concerned about the young men of, Lord, please allow their mental state of mind to stay strong. Because for a lot of these young men, football is a tool to life, but you're trying to get them to understand that. And you don't want them to realize that football is everything. But, Coach Bookbinder, myself, all the coaching staff, we've been giving him a lot of love. He's been positive, but he's truly disappointed because for the most part, he's had a very good season. And, to see us win, he was very excited, but you knew he wanted to be out there. So, this week we're going to love him up. We're going to get him through it. But, you always feel for a young man when they have an injury like that and when they've been playing so well.